Welcome to the Erotic Realm podcast, where we explore the psychology of darker desires. I'm Em, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm a psychosexuality nerd with a background in psychology, sociology, medical science, and Tantra. I'm also in a 24/7 collared relationship, and I'm passionate about humanizing kinksters. Join me here for in-depth one-on-one conversations as we explore the fascinating world of eroticism, one erotic realm at a time. If you love what we're doing here in the erotic realm, I'd like to ask you a quick favor. Can you follow and rate the show on Spotify? It helps the show reach more people like you. And if you haven't yet, I'd love if you could subscribe to my Substack, Psychology of Desire. This is where I go even deeper into the science of symbolism, of desire, archetypes, and erotic evolution. You'll get access to articles, unique surveys and research, and behind-the-scenes access to everything we're building. Visit psychologyofdesire.substack.com. I'll see you there. And now for today's episode. The following conversation is a rare and powerful glimpse into the erotic life of a woman who has been living her dominance and her devotion for over 4 decades. MissMarie is a self-described sadist, reaction junkie, mentor, and covered master. She's also the longtime wife and owner of Melissa, who you'll be meeting next week in part 2 of our Queer Power and Partnership series. In this episode, we explore the erotic evolution of a woman who discovered her dominance through a magazine and went on to build a life shaped by consensual control, chosen family, and deep ritualized love. MissMarie shares stories of collaring Melissa, mentoring others, and the sacredness of being seen and served. We also discuss her recent recognition as a covered master, what legacy she hopes to leave behind, and the peaks and edges of her play. This episode is a celebration of queer devotion, erotic longevity, and what it means to live a life of anchored power. Enjoy. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Erotic Realm podcast. Today, I'm very pleased to be chatting to Master MissMarie. Welcome, Master MissMarie.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So I like to begin the podcast by exploring a bit about who you are. Can you share with our listeners about who you are and what you get up to when you're not exploring your sexuality?
Sure. I was recently a covered master in May, and that was a new thing. I identify as a dominant, and I have been married for 38 years to the same person.
Amazing.
And yes, I got married when I was 20 years old, and we have explored and delved into all kinds of kinkery in our 38 years. When we started dating, our dating relationship started kinky. My first gifts from them were thigh-high leather boots and a pair of leather gloves. And so it began.
Amazing.
I do like in vanilla world, I love to cook. I love to bake. We like to go camping. I like to do water skiing and go boating. I'm very much an outdoors person. We designed our new house together, and we physically built our new house together.
Wow.
We did all of the framing. We did all of the window installations. We did all the plumbing and the electrical. So we kind of conquer everything that we want to do.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Now, when I was reviewing the podcast form that you filled out, you mentioned that you had a bit of an awakening moment when you discovered a particular magazine in terms of your kinky self. Can you take us into that moment?
Sure. Again, when we started dating, I was 16, and we got married when I was 19, almost 20, and the magazine would have been the Centurion's catalog. And it had all kinds of articles, but it also had um, line drawing pictures of bondage scenes and erotic things and stories to go with it, and mail in places to mail in to get catalogs for toys, because we didn't have the internet and we didn't have um, anything better than Spencer's, and Spencer's wasn't offering a whole lot of like kink toys at that time. And that really intrigued our interests, and we would wait for the catalog to come, and we would just sit there and pore over the stories and talk about what we wanted to do next and what we wanted to try and how we could save up money to order something.
Hmm. Can I ask what year this was approximately so people can get a sense of it? You mentioned it was before the internet.
I did. It would have been around um, 1984, 1985.
Amazing. And in the magazine, did they mention anything about the kink community? Is that how you came across BDSM and the community that was involved in that?
They did mention there being communities, and we would sit there and read that, and we're like, no, not
Ah,
really.
uh-huh.
We lived in a very rural part of Pennsylvania at the
Mm,
time, and there was nothing, or so we thought, nothing happening anywhere. We lived in Amish country, and it was a very conservative, religious uh, area, and our kink was solely between us, and it was solely in our bedroom for
mm-hmm.
many years, until about 2008 or so, and when we entered onto FetLife. And that's when we realized, there are people out there. There's more people than that were just in this magazine.
Mm-hmm. So how did you
And
find Pet Life? Was it through a search that you were doing? Did you just come across it randomly or did someone tell you about it?
so we are very big into corsets,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a corseteer, and her name was Amy Crowder, and she owned Wasp Creations. She has since passed away, but she was the one who, at one of our visits to her studio in New York, said to us, "You guys need to be on FetLife, and you guys need to get out and see what the kink life is really like in the real world."
Mm.
And we traveled back to Pennsylvania, and we were like, well, wait a minute, what? so so we hopped on and created an account on FetLife, and back then it was really kind of sketchy. Uh, there weren't so many groups, and there was just a lot of fringy things happening, and we didn't really get into FetLife formerly until a couple of years later, when we took another look at it, and it had developed a bit. And I found a an advertisement for a kinky bed and breakfast that was about
Mm.
3 hours from our house. And I told my submissive, "You call and make us reservations for our anniversary."
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of fun. It was in a coal town region of Pennsylvania, and we stayed in this little tiny coal miner's house, formerly coal miner's house, and she had a dungeon in the basement, and she was has also deceased, but she was known as the whip girl, and she taught me
Mm.
how to flog.
Oh.
And from then on, I was in love with floggers and
Mm-hmm.
impact.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So did you always identify as a dominant as soon as you were looking at this magazine, as soon as you were on FetLife, or was it more a gradual unfolding process into your dominant self?
No, I've always been the dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Even when we were started dating, I was always the top. I was always doing the bondage onto my onto my partner.
Mm.
Always
Mm-hmm.
doing the tying, always doing. We were very much into leather bondage, so we had straps and cuffs and locks and snaps, and but I was always the one as the dominant.
Mm. Okay. Incredible. Now, one of the traditions on the podcast is exploring a quote with you, and today's quote comes from Jean-Paul Sartre, who once wrote, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you." Now, obviously, he wasn't speaking about kink directly, but I think it applies powerfully to the erotic realm, especially to those who have taken the raw material of their past, such as pain, repression, or trauma, and alchemized it into something conscious, chosen, and deeply embodied. For many dominants, power isn't about control for its own sake, it's about reclaiming authorship. So I wanted to ask you, does this quote speak to you? Has dominance allowed you to transform past wounds or choose what freedom means to you on your own terms?
I will say that that quote is amazing, and it does not really apply to me as a healing quote for myself in
Mm-hmm.
past traumas or anything. However, I could definitely apply that quote to people that I have healed who have had past traumas, and
Mm,
it was freedom through kink.
mm. Can you share a bit
Um,
more about that if you're comfortable? How did you help them heal?
um, so I had a submissive a bit ago, and they had a lot of childhood trauma,
Mm,
both sexual and physical, that they were working through with a therapist and a counselor, and um, just weren't. They were able to get so far, but not far enough to heal entirely. And they had they had DID,
mm-hmm.
and from the experiences and the traumas of their past, and through kink, through impact scenes, and a lot of love and direction and guidance, um, we were able to work together, she and I, through a lot of her trauma
Mm.
to the point where she was able to integrate fully.
Oh my goodness, that's really powerful. Can I ask how long that process took?
It took me about a year. It
Mm-hmm.
was probably under a year, but I will say we met in February, and by December she was integrated.
Mm. Okay, amazing. My research mind automatically wants to pick that apart more, but we'll leave that there. Thank you for sharing.
We can do that later.
hmm So, you mentioned that you've been in this relationship now for close to 40 years and pretty much dominant the whole time. I'd love to hear more about your erotic journey over this time. How has your erotic identity evolved across those decades?
Well, as a young person, as a teen, a late teen and an early 20, I was dominant, and I was always the top in the scene. But there was a lot of growing that I needed to do. I was just a young person with a young mind, and I did not have a lot of worldly experiences. My parents didn't go places and do things. They were kind of homebodies. So kink is not just about, tying somebody up and saying, okay, that's good. There's a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot of preparation, and what happens if something goes wrong, and what are you going to do if it goes wrong, and how do you get yourself situated in case you need to have emergency vehicles or any of those things. But it has been a growing process since my early 20s until now. It's always been about more education, more classes, um, more networking, meeting people, um, getting their experiences, hearing their experiences, and playing with other people. And even though we've been together for so long, we are we have been together so long, but we do play with other people, and that has given me a lot of variety of experiences, and
Mm.
of things that of things you anticipate and things you don't.
Mm. So, have you always been open in that way to other people?
Once we got on FetLife, yes.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Before FetLife, we didn't know anybody else.
Yeah. And it's my understanding that you have collared Melissa. When did this happen and why did you decide to collar?
2012 was the year of her collaring.
Mm.
And we had been on FetLife for a number of years by then. And we had been master slave for many, many years. And there was no reason or necessity to collar her when it was just the two of us in the bedroom.
Mm.
But once we were out in public and we were interfacing with other people and starting to play with other people, it was important that people know that she belonged to me.
Mm.
So that was when we decided to collar her, and we had a really fun public collaring where we invited a lot of our friends and had a public ceremony. It was quite fun and very memorable, um, and she still wears that collar, not every day. It was white, and but she keeps it for special occasions. But she does wear her collar every day.
Beautiful. And what has the collaring journey with Melissa taught you about ownership, care, and erotic responsibility?
Um, so things may have changed after the collaring, just in the fact that we knew more people and we kept meeting more people. But as it relates to the two of us, I'm not sure that anything really changed wholeheartedly because we've always been solid and we've always known what we wanted from each other and how to talk to each other and how to negotiate what we wanted to do, or if we wanted to try something new. That has always been um, something we've been able to do.
Mm. Hmm. And you were mentioning in the chat we were having together before we started recording that a lot has changed over your time together. Melissa has gone through their transition journey while you've been together. Can you share with us more about what that was like from your perspective and perhaps what changed and what stayed the same?
Yes, we did. She did go through a transition. She is a transgendered woman, and so the first part of our marriage was with my husband at
Mm-hmm.
the time, and it was hard. It was hard at first. It was a gentle introduction in the bedroom with him introducing Melissa kind of through play
Mm.
and dressing female and some of our play sessions going that direction. But I had a really great person in our kink lives at the time, and on FetLife she was known as Ms. Lemon, and she was a very big person in our community, and she grounded me a lot. She gave me a lot of just verbal validation that this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. You're They need to do what they need to do, and you love them, and it's okay. It'll be fine. And there was a lot of conversations uh, between us, not heavy conversations or long conversations, but just things for me to go back and have conversations in my own brain about. And it came down to that I love the soul.
Mm.
And when you love someone, it shouldn't just be physical and it shouldn't just be emotional. It has to be all those things. And I loved their soul, and the soul wasn't going to change. The outward appearance might change, and some of their personality characteristics may change, but they're going to have the same soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the soul that I married, and that's the soul that I loved, and that's what carried me through.
Mm.
And we are as solid now as we were when we got married, pre-transition,
Mm-hmm.
and there were complications, there were bumps, there were hills and puddles and craters, and there were things to work through. But I had a lot of support in the community that, whether they necessarily knew that they were helping me or not, I don't know, but uh, they definitely did. And I have no regrets.
Mm. Beautifully said. And thank you for sharing, because we don't often hear this side of the story, especially from the partner's perspective and in such a long term marriage as well. So it's really interesting to hear. And yeah, I'm truly touched by that. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
So, in what way would you say that this relationship has enriched your life?
Enriched my life. We have done everything and anything together.
Mm,
We have grown in kink. Like every new kink thing that we've wanted to try, we've tried together.
mm,
Whether it was a good experience or a bad experience, we did it together.
mm,
And then we talked about it and decided how to proceed from there.
mm,
We have traveled together along this continent. We have gone overseas. We have um, anything that we have done has been together.
mm,
So I feel like there has been a lot of growth in both of us in just experiencing things as each of us would if through our own eyes, and then sharing it with each other to get a different perspective.
mm, I love the focus on the togetherness aspect. I'm sure that's one of the reasons why you're still together, right? It's beautiful.
Yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
do everything together. We
Mm-hmm.
still do. We well, obviously we live together, but we work together as
Mm,
well.
mm-hmm.
So we are not ever apart,
Mm-hmm.
except if the other needs to go to the doctors or to the grocery store or some odd thing, but pretty much together all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
I love that. So, another tradition we have on the podcast is exploring an article or a book with you. And there's a book I found titled Playing on the Edge: Sadomasochism, Risk, and Intimacy by Newmar. And in it, the author dives into the lived experiences of BDSM practitioners, not from a pathologizing lens, but from one of meaning making. And she writes about how risk, vulnerability, and even danger can actually be routes to emotional intimacy, connection, and identity. So I'd love to explore how this lands with you. The author suggests that people don't play with BDSM despite the risk, but because of it. I'm curious to hear from you. What role does risk, whether that be physical, emotional, or psychological, play in your most memorable scenes?
It's probably a pretty high part.
Yeah.
Um, we have done a lot of edge play,
Hmm.
and risk is definitely um, an exhilarating part of that. Um, we do a lot um, of breath play
Hmm.
and uh, and just severe bondage, and it always adds a thrill to the scene. And I do enjoy hearing her pant or moan and know that I'm in control of every breath,
Mm.
literally, literally control of every breath. And what she's breathing or what she's breathing it through. And that has always been a fun part and an integral part of our scenes.
Hmm.
Melissa is definitely a bondage masochist,
Hmm.
and and it's fun to take her to the edge and wait to see what's beyond, and what she's her floatiness and her subspace just is is a lot of fun for me to watch
Mm.
and to control.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're touching on something else that the author talks about as well. She In the book, she goes into about how edge play can be a place of intimacy, not just extremity. And I wanted to ask you, have there been times where pushing Melissa to the edge felt like a deeper act of love than anything soft ever could? And it sounds like that's what you're kind of touching on now.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
I oftentimes feel very close to her when I'm holding her breath, or, you know, doing some kind of an edge play that is, you know, quite risky. And I know that she loves it, and I know that she's floating, and I just love the fact that I'm the one who can put her there, and I'm the one who can bring her back.
Mm. The book also explores how often kinksters describe their kink identity as inseparable from their core self. Does this resonate with you? Do you see your Dom self as a role you step into or something that you always are?
It's something that I always am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It may be maybe less so, less not maybe not less so. It may be different in my work environment or my home environment, as opposed to, say, if I'm about to start a scene. Maybe more mistress comes out in the scene, but the dominant is always there.
Mm. Mm-hmm. And finally, in the book, the author challenges the idea that BDSM is just play. How would you respond to someone who sees kink as simply performance rather than transformation? And what do they miss by holding that view?
That's a big question.
Mm-hmm.
I do not see kink as just play. I do take it very seriously. There is rules and protocols and boundaries and things to that hold people to higher standards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about maybe slap and tickle to some people, because I go far beyond that, and I take it very seriously about learning and mastering skills. And as far as how to about their viewpoint of it just being play, I think they're missing out on a lot of not just fun, but the ability to expand your mind and expand what you think and what you feel and how you feel it, based on sensory things that happen to you, whether it be something light or something, a hard impact, or something drizzled on you, or something zapping you, or, you know, there's so many experiences that people have in the kink world that people in the regular world don't experience and don't have words or ways to express what they want. And I feel like the people in kink life have a bigger vocabulary. They have a deeper sense of self, and they are able to explain themselves and their wants, needs, and desires better than people who do not experience kink.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. Thank you. You've mentioned that you have created a munch and you're growing a kink family. What role does chosen family play in your erotic life?
Chosen family is pretty big in our kink life. As far as the munch is for education. We have a lot of guided discussions at our munch, and they are not to be considered a clique. We do invite people to that munch because we are trying to develop a community and of personal responsibility and character so that people can go out and share that responsibility and show their character to make our kink community better than it is.
Mm-hmm. So what would
Chosen family.
no continue?
Oh, the chosen family we have are people that we do get very close to, and who I choose to be, who get to be very vulnerable with us, and we are with them.
Mm-hmm. So is your munch a physical munch or is it virtual?
It is a physical munch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's my understanding that you've recently been given the title of Covered Master. Can you share with the listeners what this means and what that process involves?
Yes. So being a covered master happens after you have been in the community for quite a while, and there's not really any given set amount of time. It is more when you have demonstrated mastery in the community, and not just mastery of, say, that you can hit a person on this in the same spot for 10 times in a row, but mastery of multiple skills, whether it be rope and wax and fire and impact and a whole list of things. But it's also demonstrating your ability to think outside the box and to be cautious and to be responsible and to also be out there teaching the new people how to be safe and responsible and how to negotiate well. And then if it doesn't go well, how to clean up the mess without it being a airing of dirty laundry on FetLife. And so all of those things combined are what, say, other covered masters in your local area, they see that you have reached that point and they get together and decide that it is time for you to be covered. And that means getting a muir cap in a public ceremony. And it could be a private ceremony as well.
Mm-hmm. So
And
you had a public ceremony for yours?
I did.
Mm-hmm. Can you share more about what that looked like?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We were at a weekend event called Kink Stock, and it was a complete surprise to me. Both of my submissives knew about it and were participating in it, but it was a surprise to me. And on Friday night, I was told I needed to go into dungeon number 1 because Spanker, he is one of the masters, needed something, which I thought was odd, but it's an event, so things happen and people need answers or need help or whatever. So I was like, well, okay, I'm not quite dressed all up the way I want to be, but okay. And they're just like pushing me out the door. And so I go into the dungeon and, I was expecting to see people because people are arriving, it's registration time and, there's an influx of people and I'm getting pulled in this door and all of a sudden, I'm saying hi to Master Steve and I'm saying hi to Master Spanker. And those are the two men that covered me. And they, as the door opened up and they give me my hugs and things, there is a room full of people. And I'm being ushered to a chair, sort of in the middle of the back of the room and told to sit down. And I'm looking around kind of bewildered, like, what is going on? Why am I here? And I'm looking around at people in the room, and some of them are dear friends whom I have had for, I don't know, 15 years or more. And they're standing there, and they're from Pennsylvania, so they're 16 hours away.
Oh.
And they're standing there in the room. And I'm like, what? I'm whispering to them as somebody starts to talk, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, what are you doing here? and then Master Steve starts to speak, and I'm still trying to get my bearings as to what is going on. And no one has said, this is your covering ceremony. I've just been seated, and he starts to talk, and then this box is placed in front of me. And I'm looking at this box, and it's just a postal service box, and it's not opened. And I'm looking at this box, and I'm like, what is this box? And why am I seated here? Why am I here? And finally he said, ma'am, do you know why you're here? And I'm looking at him, and I'm like bewildered, and I'm like, no, I have no idea why I'm here. And he's like, you're being covered. And I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, what? Really? Right here, right now? And there were smiles on everybody's faces in the room. And then he spoke, and Master Spanker spoke, and then my girls spoke, and then other people in the room also spoke on my behalf and said why they thought that I should be why I should be covered.
Mm.
And then they opened the box, and they put my cap on my head. And that was my ceremony. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, how did you feel in that moment?
Amazing. It was such a blessing that people thought that much of me to want to do that for me, because I didn't think that I had done anything to really deserve it. I was not actively pursuing to be covered. I was just living my life and being the best person that I could be. And I was a teacher for many years before I retired from that job. And teaching is kind of in my blood. So I do like to teach people, and I do like to share skills and knowledge with people. And I actively do that no matter where I am. So it was just a surprise, and it was very heartwarming that's what the community saw.
Beautiful. So how do you think this public recognition shifts things like personal identity or responsibility? And do you think it's important to have these public roles in kink?
I do think it's important, because if there's not people actively learning and actively becoming presented with with a title of higher knowledge, then there's people are not going to know that you can attain higher knowledge. There needs to be somebody to look up to, so that there's somebody to teach. And I think that just comes with age and time and wisdom.
So do you now wear that cap in kink spaces, and people can identify you as someone to learn from easily?
Yes, if we go to a public event, I do wear my cap. Not necessarily to a munch, but if I'm going to an event, say Southeast Leather Fest, or to another leather event, I will most certainly wear my cap. And people do see that and give me respect for that. But in turn, I don't think that I'm above anybody else. I just believe that I have weathered a lot of storms and I have learned a lot of things that I can pass on to other people.
It's like a symbol of wisdom.
Right.
Beautiful. Now, as part of our conversation today, I asked you to bring along something to share, such as a quote, book, or a movie that's influenced your eroticism. I know you mentioned earlier about the magazine. I'm curious to know, did you bring along something else today that's shaped your erotic realm to share?
I did. So movies would not be able to be a focus for me, because when I got into kink in the early 80s, I was too young to go to any BDSM type movies, because you would have had to have been 21 here in the States to see them. So I was still too young for those things in my earlier years. But I do have a quote.
Cool.
And the quote is, Lead with purpose, follow with passion. And it's by John C. Maxwell. And to me, this quote relates to me as a community leader and a mentor. It's important that I communicate and demonstrate rules, protocols, boundaries, skills, and negotiations clearly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the destination or having a perfect scene. It's about the love and enthusiasm and commitment that I have for sharing knowledge and skills and my passion to do things that aren't just right, but with accuracy and intent
Mm.
that will hopefully inspire others to want to be purposeful in their words and actions and want to achieve higher standards for themselves.
Mm. Beautifully said. And I think you're doing that right now. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I want to go back to something that you touched on a little bit earlier when you were talking about enjoying reactions, because you describe yourself as a reaction junkie. What is
Mm-hmm.
it about someone's squeal, shiver, or surrender that turns you on?
All of it. uh, um, I do love the shivers of anticipation.
Mm,
Um, when they there's an inhale and they surrender or they moan and they just kind of melt into your arms,
mm-hmm,
or um, when they're all tense and you tie them to the cross and they're tense and they're anticipatory, and the first strike of a flogger, and they kind of jump and they tighten up, and then as you continue they release and the
mm,
moans start, and not just the moans, but sometimes there's yelping or squealing or screaming or whatever intensity comes, all of those things. Melissa loves to be bound, so she doesn't get to make a lot of noise, but I do hear lots of moans and pants and different whether her breathing changes from deep breaths to shallow breaths, and all of those things are very erotic to me and uh, definitely get me going and get me hot.
mm-hmm. I think a lot of people listening will vibe with you on that one. Mm-hmm. So, do you think your pleasure lies more in control or in giving someone an unforgettable experience or something else entirely?
um, Part of what makes a scene great for me is that I know that I have the power, and I know that I have the control, and I know that I have the skill and the intent and the responsibility that I can give them what they need,
Mm,
because I'm very, very good at reading body language. And I know that I can hit them harder or softer because I can read their language. And I know I can give them a great scene and get into their desires and get them into the headspace that they need to have. And that's what makes a great scene for me.
mm-hmm. And is that something that you learnt over time, body language, or do you teach that specifically in your classes?
No, that is definitely something I learned over time,
Mm-hmm.
um, starting with Melissa, but also um, I was a teacher, and I taught small children.
Mm-hmm.
And small children have a very limited vocabulary, but their body language says a lot.
Right.
So I got very good at reading their body language and then giving them vocabulary to be able to express what was going on.
Mm. So would you say that's one of the main parts about being a good dominant, being a good observer?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm, s-
Absolutely.
I'm so curious to hear, is there a toy in your bag at the moment that holds a special story or symbolism for you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a flogger that it was my very first flogger that I bought. It is made of moose hide,
Mm.
and it has multiple reasons why it's got a special place. Not only was it my first, but I bought it from a company that is not in business anymore. It was called SM Hertz. And the person who I came to know much, much, much later, who owned it at the time, I got to meet her and we became very good friends. And she told me during this friendship, just nonchalantly, because we were having a conversation about something else, that she actually owned that business and she was the one who she personally handmade all of her floggers.
Mm.
And I asked for a second, and she made me, even though she didn't make them anymore, she made me another flogger to match the first one.
Beautiful.
And the importance of it being a moose is my spirit animal. So it's made out of moose hide, and it is very soft, and it is the go-to flogger that I have used for the last at least 15 years, as a perfect warm-up. And if you know that you are going to have a bottom that maybe is new or is not into pain, you can use this flogger on them and know you can use it all night long and it's not going to hurt them.
Hmm.
It's not going to harm them. It's not going to leave. It's most likely not going to leave any marks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, coming from Australia, I don't know much about the moose. Can you tell me more about why that's your spirit animal and what a moose symbolizes for you?
So moose live in the northern part of the States and up into Canada, and they are very much cold weather animals, but they're very large. They can stand about 15 feet tall, and they have very big antlers, and they have attitude. And their attitude is, I'm going to win. It just doesn't matter what's in my way. So if it's a car, the car is not going to fare too well if it hits a moose. Even trains don't fare well if it hits a moose.
Wow.
And they stomp and they root and they move their heads around to show their big antlers, and there's only one moose per square mile, and that's definitely me.
Mm-hmm.
There's just one me per square mile. Like, I definitely have a bit of an attitude at times, and I definitely root, and I definitely move my head around, and I shake my antlers at my submissives, and they know, but they better sit down and be quiet, because the moose is not happy.
I love it. I was looking at your classes and saw Bottoming from the Top is a class title of yours.
Yes.
I love the concept. I've heard of topping from the bottom, but not so much the other way around. Can you unpack what that term means and how it shows up for you?
Sure. I thought it was a fun play on words,
Mm-hmm.
because people in the community do complain that your submissive is topping from the bottom,
Mm.
but you do not ever hear about a top bottoming.
Mm-hmm.
And what that really means is how dominants or tops serve the community, because we do serve. It's not always a public thing, and it's definitely not a bad thing, but topping or bottoming from the top is a dominant who is out teaching classes, who is out helping the new person in the community, because they don't know dungeon etiquette, and they don't know how to approach, how to negotiate. And that top goes out and very quietly and helps to instruct them or guide them without making a big deal of what they're doing, and not doing it because they're making a name for themselves or being self-serving. It is a very quiet way of guiding and promoting the community and making a healthier, better community, without it being, look at me, I'm a top and I'm doing
Mm.
this.
Mm. I love that. So it's all about how to serve the community.
Correct.
Mm. Now, we have another tradition on the podcast where I ask the guest a question sourced by the listeners. And today, one of the listeners wants to know, do you still explore new things in your relationship after so long, or have you figured out what reliably works for you both?
Oh, we are definitely still exploring.
How amazing
We
after so long. Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of things that are tried and true. But we are a triad now, and uh, she has been with us for almost a year. So with her, we have been trying new things, but things that even in previous triads we had not explored and had not done. So you think after all these years that it would be really hard to find something that you hadn't done before, but we're finding a lot of things we haven't done before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a lot of fun, and we are still trying new things. We're still exploring and doing and amazingly finding new things that make us happy and make fun make play fun.
Mm-hmm. That's so inspiring because sometimes you hear people say, that they've tried everything and there's nothing new to try. But if you're a bit creative and think outside the box, there's always something, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And
Yep.
you don't have to stretch the box too far.
Love it. Now, you've had such a rich and varied erotic journey. I'm curious to hear from you. When you look back, is there a moment that stands out as a kind of peak erotic experience that you've had? A time when something clicked, shifted, or expanded in a way that that left you feeling deeply satisfied, transformed, or even surprised by your own erotic self?
That is a tough question.
Is there like an
Um,
experience that comes to mind when I ask it?
I would say coloring Melissa,
Mm-hmm.
because that also went with our 25th anniversary,
Oh.
and being covered.
Mm. So was the colouring a public ceremony or more private?
Oh, it was very public.
Can you share a little bit about it?
Sure. There was a space in Baltimore, Maryland at the time, called the Baltimore Playhouse, and it was in a row home. It has since burned down, sadly.
Mm.
But we had rented that space. That space had been used for parties that we went to on a regular basis. So we were very familiar with this place. And we invited, oh, I don't know, about 50 or so of our 50 of our closest friends to share in the public coloring of Melissa. And we 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 rented the space. We purchased custom outfits, and um, we decorated, and we had it catered, and we had people from local people as well as people from Canada who came to visit and or to observe and participate in our coloring. So that was a pretty big momentous undertaking, as well as a very fun remembrance of the coloring of Melissa.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Now, if your erotic self could leave a legacy or lesson behind, what would it be?
Love.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Love heals all.
Mm.
Love is the healing ingredient for almost everything.
Mm. And if you had to describe your sexuality in one word, what would it be and why?
My sexuality in one word.
Hard one.
Yes. Um, hmm, in one word. Pansexual?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought that comes to mind.
Yep. So if people want to find out more about you and your classes, where is the best place to find you?
I am MissMarie on FetLife. It's all one word. You can find me there.
Yep. And all of your classes are on your profile, easy to find on there?
Yes.
Cool. Wonderful. Well, I'd like to thank you for being so open and sharing about your journey today with us, Master MissMarie.
Thank you. I've appreciated your time and I've had a great time talking with you.
Me too. Thank you again. I'm Em, and this has been the Erotic Realm podcast. Thank you for listening to the Erotic Realm. If this episode stirred something in you, please take a moment to follow the show, leave a rating, or write a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It helps more people find the show and brings visibility to this deeper conversation about eroticism and self-understanding. I'd also like to invite you to dive deeper into the psychology of desire, including my writing, research, and upcoming courses over at psychologyofdesire.com. And if you want the full experience, join thousands of curious minds on my Substack at psychologyofdesire.substack.com, where I release the Psychology of Desire case files, behind-the-scene thoughts, and intimate reflections every week, plus more. Until next time, stay curious, stay embodied, and keep exploring. Also, as always, stay perverted.